What's up, folks? It's Chili here. I haven't posted in a little while. Life has been catching up to me, so been a little bit busy. But today we're gonna try something new, something that doesn't take as much effort to produce, at least. I've got some gameplay in the background going on here of me playing the Holy Roman Empire. And I wanted to talk today briefly about some of the new news that has been circulating in the community. Specifically, Aussie Drongo has been talking about he has a video talking about the potential leaks for two new civilizations that might be added into the game. Also, if you hear any kind of noise going on in the background, that's just from the gameplay. This game was recorded originally. I had the Discord voices also recorded, so you might hear me and my friends kind of talking a little bit. But hopefully, I've turned it down a little bit where it won't be too distracting. Anyways, there's some news coming out about two potential leaks, specifically the civs being, or the variant civs being leaked, being the civilizations of Novgorod, as well as another mystery flag, which seems some people have been speculating to be a Crusader state civ. I think Aussie Drongo was saying it could be Wales or something like that. I was reading the subreddit, and it seems like it seems like the consensus is basically that is the flag of Cyprus. Both the Novgorod flag and the Cyprus flag can be found in the game files already because they are both part of the campaign. Cyprus specifically, I think there's the final mission in the Sultan's Ascend campaign has you basically invading Cyprus, and so that's where our flags are coming from. Are these potential leaks for new civs? Well, maybe. But I think what's more interesting is just kind of thinking through how exactly these civs might work, what kinds of things they might feature. Does it make sense that these are the civs that they went with as far as variant civs go? And Actually, I also have some thoughts on maybe what Relic's strategy should be moving forward. Note that, like, I'm sure some of you guys have already heard the news about how Relic recently had quite a bit of a layoff going on within their company. I think about 20% of the workforce got laid off, so pretty sad news there. There's definitely been a lot of changes within the gaming industry as a whole, as well as just within the tech industry as a whole lately. So it kind of makes sense that Relic would also be impacted. And pretty much every single game development studio I know about has been going through something. Relic recently, I think they bought out their position so that they are now an independent company, no longer a part of Sega. So quite a few changes. I wonder if that's related to some of the funding issues. Here you see, like, I'm struggling with the placement of my Ockenschaffel. Oh my god, this is so bad. Oh my god, what am I doing? Um, I'm trying really hard to not let the prelate get distracted by buffing up those villagers that are building the Aachen, but yeah, oh my god, I don't know if this is even more efficient. I feel like this is like super suboptimal the way I did this. Um, Anyways, yeah, a lot of layoffs happening in the tech industry as a whole, so it's not too much of a surprise that that Relic is impacted, and I hope that the developers who got laid off, them and their families are still able to do well or hold out or find new jobs. I know that a lot of my friends who are in the tech industry, they have definitely been having a hard time trying to find new jobs. It's a very competitive market out there. Anyways, well, one thing that could potentially help this market is if cool new products get made and we buy them. So let's go back to talking about um, the potential DLC expansion. So, for the first expansion that we got for AoE 4 Sultan's Ascend, we have six civs get added into the game. The Japanese, the Byzantines being the two major releases, and then four variant civs in the form of, it was Jeanne d'Arc for the French, Order of the Dragon for the Holy Roman Empire. What were the other two? Why am I blanking out on it? Jushi's Legacy for China, and Ayyubids for the Abbasid civilization. A little bit of a weird and eclectic mix of civilizations to both pick for who gets variants as well as to pick who gets which civs get represented. My guess is that this all is a little bit like unplanned. I think developers were probably looking into variant civs as a cost-cutting measure to basically provide more content to the game while still not having to spend as much resources as you would need for a full-on civ. Um, so I think overall, like from the community, it was like a huge success. Like people really seem to enjoy the new civs. Obviously, there's a few folks, myself included, who have been maybe we'll call ourselves the historical purists faction, or at least historical. The faction of players who really enjoy the historical inspiration behind the game. We were a bit disappointed, I think, for quite a while, especially with like some of the naming. Originally, Jushi's Legacy was going to be named Jade Empire or something like that, which is a little bit ridiculous. And Ayubids was going to be the Sultan's Army or something like that. People were really ass mad about the name Jeanne d'Arc for a whole civilization. And I think over time, the community has basically come to terms with it. Like it's received pretty well, and people aren't like as badly affected by it as people thought they would. Of course, the game is not the same anymore, but overall, I think the addition of new civs has done nothing but like add a lot of variety to how people play, which is pretty exciting. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm already thirsty for some new civs being added into the game. As far as I'm concerned, more civs is just more content, and more content means more stuff that I get to share with you guys. So I think it'll be pretty exciting seeing whatever the developers make. So now let's talk about specifically the civs that are being represented with this upcoming expansion. My personal hope is that the current release schedule that they have for Age of Empires is it leaves something to be desired. It's very slow. We get maybe one major release a year, which means that the game is not really in the hype. There's no hype cycle for the game. It's not being talked about. There's no news or anything like interesting happening for a very long period of time. I mean, I know like sometimes there's patches that add a lot of stuff to the game. I remember halfway through the last year, we got a patch that added a bunch of new unique units to the game and added some new mechanics for some of the existing civilizations. I think that's okay to whet the appetite just a little bit, but it doesn't it really doesn't compare to like the hype that you get from adding a new civilization. And I personally would have really preferred it if there was more a more steady stream of news coming in, as well as like announcements and like new things that really mix up the gameplay. If it is going to be like adding some new unique units to existing civs, that might happen like every other month or so. But then I would really expect like what I would love to see rather is just like a new civ release every single quarter, and then maybe the major civs get released at the in time for Christmas or something like that. If we got like a single variant civ each quarter, I feel like that'd be amazing content that just like constantly keeps Age of Empires 4 in the news cycle, allows us content creators to basically just talk about it and just like keep the hype going. Because basically in a game like this, any kind of multiplayer game really, if you're not in the hype cycle, people aren't thinking about your game, people aren't going to play your game, and then it just kind of like slowly allows your game to fade into irrelevance. I know that when I was getting busy, it was really hard to keep up with Age of Empires stuff just because there was nothing really interesting happening with it. I mean, FFA was kind of like the big release recently, but I kind of don't really get much out of playing FFA personally. I like playing team games primarily, so the thought of just like FFA queuing is not quite for me. I also feel like when if you do play with your friends, it's really easy to rig it and just create a really unfair environment for everyone else. So I think there's limitations to that game mode, but the success of it has definitely been interesting to see. I think it says something about the current player base of AoE 4. Maybe people aren't really able to play with their friends all that often. I mean, my guess is that AoE 4 as an audience skews towards people who are a little bit busier with their adult lives, and maybe don't have the kind of friend group that are able to regularly like come online and play games every night. So it kind of makes sense, I guess, but personally, I think AoE 4 does have a future if it does lean into the team game direction. Anyways, I'm rambling way too much about that random stuff. To get back into the talk about the new variant civs, Novgorod and what people are thinking might be Cyprus. Do they make sense? Well, personally, I don't know if you guys have seen some of my other videos speculating on potential variant civs, but Novgorod is, I think, the obvious civ to pick when it comes to the Rus. They are historically, Rus was a collection of principalities and city-states within what is now modern-day Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, Eastern Europe, basically. And there wasn't like a central authority, and of those principalities and states, Novgorod, Moscow, Kiev, these were some of the most dominant players in the region. Novgorod is particularly famous, I think, for the Alexander Nevsky, who was this very famous Russian leader during this time period. And if I recall correctly, he led the Novgorodian forces. Oh my God, this video feed is really cutting out. Next time I record this, I'm gonna need to make sure I get the video feed working or do something better so it doesn't like have these weird glitches. Anyways, he led the Novgorodian forces against the Teutonic Knights, and I actually, I'm sorry, but I actually don't know too much of the history beyond that. I know there's a famous battle on the ice, and that Alexander Nevsky was somehow participating in it. There's like some famous movies related to this, but I actually don't know why it was that he was fighting why it was that he was fighting the Crusader forces. My understanding is that the Teutonic Knights were trying to basically crusade against some of the pagans in like maybe modern day Lithuania, Estonia, Latvia, that region. But I mean, Novgorod should have been Orthodox Christian by this time. I don't think it's that common for Catholics to crusade against Orthodox forces, even if they had their disagreements. They're still Christian technically. I know that the Crusades, especially the what was it? Was it the fifth or the sixth crusade? There was a crusade that ended in the sacking of Constantinople by the Italian forces, but I don't think that that's the same thing as what was going on in this battle. Anyways, point is to say it'd be exciting to see the civilization. I think Novgorod is a shoo-in one way or another, so it does make sense that this could be a legitimate leak as far as what the Rus civ could be. And as far as like how the mechanics of a Novgorod civ would work, well, I think there's a lot of really interesting things that they can go in with it. One of the main, I guess we'll say, deficiencies or unique factors of the Rus civ in the game is the way they build their walls. They don't have access to stone walls, and until recently they added a mechanic where you can, if you build the specified tower, you can access stone walls again. But if you had a Novgorodian civ, maybe the way they build walls, they can just work like normal civs. That could be one direction to go in. Another direction that I personally think would be super interesting to go in is actually to look into the hunting mechanic. The Rus do have a hunting mechanic where they kind of compel you to play this mini game where you go around and snipe out all the deer. It also forces the opponent to do so to stop you from getting your bounties, your bounties. And if you do get your bounties, you basically get a food gathering bonus for the rest of the game. It's super beneficial for you to do so, and it's a way for you to generate a lot of extra gold in the early game. I have always felt like this mechanic was a little bit contrived. It doesn't really, it kind of forces players to play in a way that doesn't feel that comfortable, especially if you're a new player. It's really hard to micro all the scouts and plan around all that. So I've always wanted to see them kind of take this civ in a little bit of a different direction. And maybe this is an opportunity to try doing something differently. I think I saw someone on Reddit was saying that maybe the Novgorod civ could spawn with the warrior monk or something like that. I don't know if a warrior monk in the Dark Age is necessarily balanced, but maybe something more of an emphasis on warrior monks could be really interesting. I know that warrior monks were certainly very, very prevalent during this time period, so it's definitely something that could add a bit of a unique flavor to this variant civilization. I also personally think that an emphasis on like a hero unit, maybe through the presence of Alexander Nevsky, that would make a ton of sense. I mean, we already saw the success of Jeanne d'Arc as a hero unit, or some of you guys don't like Jeanne d'Arc. Maybe it's not a good idea in particular, but I personally think it added some flavor to the game. So I would be interested in seeing Alexander Nevsky as a hero unit and seeing maybe some of the civilization mechanics be built around him. Maybe he's a special type of warrior monk or something like that, even, or like he does something unique related to that. And I think that's all I have to say about Novgorod at the moment. I think yeah, it's probably a shoo-in for a civ, and it makes sense that they're going to go in that direction. Whether or not it's a leak, I don't know. It could just be a bug in the system that they just added some of the campaign civilizations just randomly get registered as civs when you hit random on the ranked pool. But as far as a variant could go, it makes a lot of sense. Moving on to the other civ, which I think is maybe a little bit more interesting, is the potential addition of a Crusader state civ. The reason I say this is because the flag in question includes a section that actually looks like the flag of the Kingdom of Jerusalem, but this civ originally, or this flag rather, is actually just the medieval flag of the Kingdom of Cyprus, and as mentioned before, it's featured in the campaign for the Sultan's Ascend. And I think it's a really interesting direction to go in. I made a video a while back talking about the potential for a Richard the Lionheart civilization for the English variant. I mean, we haven't got an English variant, which is pretty surprising because English are one of the most popular civs in the game. They're very easy, and there's a lot of things you could do to vary up their playstyle. I think the reason why I think a Richard the Lionheart civilization or a Crusader style variant civilization makes sense for the English is because obviously there's a lot of potential with the Crusades. It's a very popular period of history. I think a lot of people will be excited to see like Templars and Hospitallers and Teutonic Knights and everything. After all, those assets are already in the game. If you played the Sultan's Ascent campaign, there are Crusader units that you can actually fight against in that campaign, and they look amazing, especially the Teutonic Knights. So it'd be a shame if they don't actually amount to anything. But people were kind of saying like, well, you could just have like a full-on Crusader civilization, for instance, and like, yeah, like you could, but at the same time, I feel like, in this game, every civilization has unique artwork, unique music, unique voice lines. There's so much like opportunity for like different cultures to be represented, and if you did a Crusader civ, they basically just speak French, maybe speak a little bit of German or English, something like that, maybe some Latin. It's just like it's overlapping too much with the existing cultural identities. The music of a civilization, a Crusader civilization, would also overlap a lot with the current Middle Eastern or European civs. So it just feels like it doesn't make sense to do a fully fledged civilization for the Crusader states, which means that it's a great opportunity to do something that's more focused on a variant. And the English did have, since we do have an opportunity to make a variant with the English, and they do have quite a bit of integral history with the Crusades, especially through Richard the Lionheart, who's also a very popular figure in England. I think it just makes a ton of sense. Like the stars kind of line up for this, something like this to happen. Now, Richard Lionheart did actually, on his way to the Crusades, he actually took over Cyprus at one point, and so it could be that the Cyprus flag is just like a placeholder for an eventual Richard the Lionheart civilization. That could be possible, or it could be that just Cyprus is somehow the Crusaders' civ, and that's it. So there's like at least all I'm saying is that there's at least a tenuous connection between Richard the Lionheart in England to a Cyprus civilization. That being said, it's a little bit of a stretch to say that the English variant civ would be Cyprus, or at least that doesn't quite make sense to me. As far as mechanics go, for a Crusader civilization, obviously I'm really looking forward to being able to create those order units, getting access to those order units that we already see in the campaign. especially if they do something interesting with like maybe you can only similar to like the Byzantine mercenary system or something like that. You're limited to one particular order or another, and you can only pick one maybe, or the different orders might like have different buffs associated with it. I know in the campaign that the Teutonic Knights were kind of like the defensive guys, and the Templars were the offensive guys, and then the Hospitallers were kind of like warrior monks. They kind of healed people. So I think there's a lot of really interesting directions you can go in with that. Another direction I was thinking that could be cool, but I don't know if it necessarily makes sense for them to do something like this, is to actually play into the idea of the Crusades being a kind of multinational effort. So rather than just being like one civilization with like, can you imagine the Crusader, if you had the Crusader state civ and they could make longbows or even like access like wine guard units or something like that, just like if they were a variant of the English and they just get English units like that. It doesn't quite make sense, especially if they lack some of the other unique units, or if all of the Crusader units are just speaking English the whole time. It just seems like it doesn't fully represent the multinational effort that the Crusades represented. So it could be interesting to see it could be interesting to instead see like a civ that basically serves as a amalgamation or like a zombie of a Frankenstein of all of the other European civs in the game, or all the civs that participate in the Crusades, including the Byzantines even. If you could like actually in each age you could pick a landmark from each civ or something like that. Like in the first age you could access the School of Cavalry from the French, or the Council Hall from the English, or even like a weaker version of the Burgrave or something like that. By the way, in this game is kind of an easy game to watch and talk over, just because I was basically completely untouched for the first 20 minutes of the game. I got basically all the relics on the map, and now you're going to see the full the HRE dream game, where I just get to spam infantry and just run over the opponent. Not too much drama happening in this particular game, and sorry about the glitching, guys. Like I'll need to figure out how to fix that next time. Yeah, anyways, I think there's a lot of potential for a lot of different directions that they could take for the a Crusader state civ, and I guess I'll enter into the next section for the video and talk about some of the other potential variant civs that could be possible. Let's see, the other civs that we have are that haven't gotten a variant civilization in the base version. We have the Rus, we have the English. Did Delhi get one? Delhi hasn't gotten one either. And then what's the last one? Is it oh man, I'm blanking out. Malians and the Ottomans haven't got one either. It makes sense that the Malians and the Ottomans, along with the Byzantines and the Japanese, might be like the third iteration or something like that. Maybe they'll get one in the expansion after this one. I'm trying to think what else. What was the other civ that hasn't gotten something yet? Why am I blanking out on this? Is it the no? Wait, is it the Ottomans? No. It's not the Ottomans. Let's see. HRE got one. The French got one. Abbasid got one. China got one. Why am I blanking out? We have Delhi Sultanate, and then we have English, and then we have Rus. Is there a fourth civ that nobody plays that I can't think of? What? Okay, well, anyways, to speak specifically about the Delhi Sultanate, let's talk about what I would like to see with that. The Delhi Sultanate is historically it was a very controversial civ pick in the first place, where people were very upset that the Delhi Sultanate would be basically the India representative for this game, just because it doesn't quite it's not seen as like the best representation for the modern incarnation of India necessarily. Modern incarnation of India is much more of a Hindu majority state, whereas the Delhi Sultanate is in some cases seen as kind of like a Muslim invader type civilization. It's not really representing the Hindu culture as well. Which I can see the argument for that. So a lot of people kind of hoping for like an Indian civ that's has more of a Hindu focus, especially considering the fact that there's a lot of other Muslim civs already in the game. It would be nice to see some kind of Hindu representation in the game. So people were hoping for like a Rajput civilization or like a Tamil civilization. I personally think that a Tamil civilization deserves to be its own unique civilization completely. It would almost be a little bit offensive actually to take the Delhi Sultanate civilization and just turn them into a variant for a Hindu civilization, just because the language is so different, the culture is so different. Even the music, I'm sure, would be completely different. So it doesn't quite make sense. Instead, I think the direction that makes sense is that the Delhi Sultanate might look to have a variant civ that maybe is a little bit more fantastical, or it encompasses like another smaller Muslim majority state that was within India. Maybe like Gujarat or something like that. I I think some kind of personally, I think the most interesting direction for a Delhi Sultanate civilization variant is to lean into the elephants a bit more. I think the current incarnation of the Delhi Sultanate really focuses on the way that they get technology and the scholars and everything, which is a bit of you guys have probably heard my opinions on that. I don't like the way that they implemented the technology researching mechanic. I think it's a little bit contrived and it just doesn't really capture the mechanic all that well. It actually takes away some of the nuance of like choosing what text to research in this game. So I would love to instead see a civ that a variant that plays less into the scholar mechanic and plays more into the elephants, because honestly, like, elephants are such a cool unit, but like they're woefully underrepresented in the game right now. It's like you almost never get an opportunity to really build it. They're so expensive. If you do get a mass of them, they're basically unstoppable, but if you can't get the big enough mass up, it's almost fruitless to build it, and you'd rather just build men-at-arms or lancers or something, or even hand cannoneers with the Delhi Sultanate. So, oh man, I'm okay. I'm gonna try one more time to think of all the civs in the game, and try to figure out what civ doesn't have a variant yet. What was the last one? Why am I blanking out on this so hard? The three European civs get it. You have the Ottomans. You have the Rus. You have Delhi Sultanate. Oh, Mongols. Mongols is the last civ. Oh my god. Yeah. Okay. So as far as Mongols go, I think there's a few obvious directions. When the Mongol state was formed, it broke into multiple different smaller states, split among Genghis Khan's children and grandchildren. And some of the big ones that everyone's heard of, like for instance, like Yuan Dynasty with China. Also, the Ilkhanate in Persia. I think it was called the Chagatai Khanate in Central Asia, and then in Russia, in the Russian area, there was the Golden Horde. I think of these states, the Golden Horde is probably the one that has the most potential as far as being a variant civilization goes, just because we already have a Yuan dynasty represented in the game in the form of the Chinese civilization. It doesn't quite make sense for them to also have the Yuan dynasty as like a Mongol variant. Plus, like, the Golden Horde could offer for some unique mechanics. We can get some like Kuman inspired units potentially. I think that could be really cool. And maybe look into a civilization that's almost like has like some Western elements. It's like both Mongolian and nomadic, but also has some like Western elements into it. I don't know. Oh man, if there was like some way to extract tribute from people, that'd be so cool. There's a lot of potential directions they can go in with that. So yeah, I think those are all of my thoughts on the variant civs. It's pretty exciting to see that the developers are, despite all the changes that have been happening, that they're still clearly hard at work on updating the game. Hopefully that this isn't just a bug, and I'm really curious to hear what your thoughts are as well. Yeah, that's all for me. Stay frosty, stay chilly.